welcome to the daily English news program in Azerbaycan Television with the most important events of the day. I'm your host, Rəsmi. In connection with the 32nd anniversary of the January 20th tragedy, President İlham and First Lady Mehriban Aliyeva visited the Martyrs' Alley.
In connection with the 32nd anniversary of the tragedy of January 20, President İlham and First Lady Mehriban Aliyeva honored the memory of those who had lost their lives for the freedom of our country at the Alley of Martyrs Memorial Complex. On January 20, 1990, the deployment of the units of the Soviet Army against the people who took to the streets and squares of Baku was just demand and a decisive protest against the aggression of Armenia, which had territorial claims against our country, led to the tragedy in Azerbaijan. The massacre of the peaceful civilians who rose to fight for freedom and territorial integrity of their country, the killing and wounding of hundreds of innocent citizens as a result of mass terror has once again demonstrated to the whole world the crime of totalitarian Soviet regime on the verge of its collapse. Unfortunately, the Zen leadership of the USSR and Azerbaijan, being the direct organizers and executors of this bloody crime, did not take any measures to investigate and bring the perpetrators to justice. On the contrary, they did everything possible to conceal it. On the next morning after the tragedy on January 20, the national leader Heydar Aliyev came to the Azerbaijani representation in Moscow to share the grief of his people. The exposure of the bloody action by the Soviet regime in Azerbaijan by the great leader turned out to be moral support and consolation for the people. In those difficult days, the people felt that they were not alone in their grief. At the initiative and under the leadership of Heydar Aliyev, the Supreme Council of the Nakhchivan Autonomous Republic on November 21, 1990, for the first time gave a political and legal assessment of these events. After the return of the great leader to the leadership of the country in 1994, the January events received a political and legal assessment at the state level. January 20 is written in the history of the Azerbaijani people as the peak of self-sacrifice and heroism. At the end of the 20th century, our people incurred heavy losses, but at the same time wrote the history which we can be proud of for centuries, history accompanied by exceptional will and courage. Years have passed, the followers of those who on the bloody night of January 20 led the path to independence, liberated our lands which were under occupation for 30 years, and created a new reality, the Iron Fist won. This is an incredible feeling to be a citizen of the victorious country, and our brave army showed an invaluable example of courage in the 40-day war under the leadership of the Supreme Commander-in-Chief and made it possible for our people to live this feeling. Today we have the image of a winner, and this story we wrote as a united people. This victory is a celebration of a confidence and deep respect for oneself.
President of the Republic of Azerbaijan, Ilham Aliyev, received continental Europe and Turkey advisor in the office of the French President, Ms. Isabelle Dumont, and European Union Special Representative for the South Caucasus, Toivo Klar.
President Ilham Aliyev congratulated France on assuming the presidency of the European Union and expressed hope that the French presidency of the European Union would be successful and fruitful. President Ilham Aliyev recalled with satisfaction his meetings with President of the Council of the European Union Charles Michel and French President Emmanuel Macron in Brussels on December 15th last year. President Ilham Aliyev praised the meeting with representatives of France and the European Union in this format, emphasizing that it created positive opportunities for the development of the peace agenda discussed in Brussels. Isabelle Dumont, advisor in the office of the French President on continental Europe and Turkey, thanked President Ilham Aliyev for receiving the delegation January 20th, the day of mourning for the people of Azerbaijan. She noted that as presidency of the EU, they made this visit together with representatives from France and the European Union. Isabelle Dumont stressed that the visit was aimed at holding discussions as a continuation of the positive meetings held in Brussels on December 15th. EU Special Representative for the South Caucasus, Toivo Klar, stressed the importance of the meetings held in Brussels within the framework of the 6th EU Eastern Partnership Summit, noting that the visit to the region was important in terms of discussing important issues. The sides exchanged views on ensuring lasting peace and stability in the region, as well as other issues of mutual interest.
On January 20 at 12 p.m. throughout the territory of Azerbaijan, the memory of the martyrs of January 20 was honored with a minute of silence. Vehicles, ships in the Baku Bay honked. State flags were lowered as a sign of mourning. The memory of the martyrs on January 20 is also honored in Shusha. Commemoration ceremonies were held in the city center. The memory of the martyrs was honored with a moment of silence. January 20, 1990 is an ordinary date for the vast majority of the world's population. The state divided the life of a whole people, the fate of the Azerbaijani state, into before and after. Decades separate us from that terrible January night, but the soul still hurts, the heart aches.
The 20th January roundabout was named in memory of those who were crushed by the tank tracks, who were killed trying to hide or help a man who fell on a cold asphalt. It's the place where the units of the Soviet army shot unarmed Soviet people wishing to live in an independent, sovereign republic. The Soviet power could not tolerate such dissent, so in the example of Baku, the USSR leadership showed that such a punishment, the fate awaits everyone who wants freedom. But the Soviet authority could not break down the Azerbaijani people's resistance who rose to fight for independence, freedom and sovereignty. More than 3 decades have passed since the tragic bloody night, but in the memory of a free independent people, in the history of sovereign Azerbaijan, that black day, 20th January 1990, will never dim. National leader Heydar Aliyev was the first to demand a political and legal assessment of this inhuman crime committed against an entire nation at the end of the 20th century. The historic statement he made on January 21, 1990, at the Azerbaijani representation in Moscow was the first political assessment of the bloody tragedy of January 20th.
Я узнал об этом вчера утром, и, естественно, оставаться равнодушным этому событию не смог. Пришел сюда прежде всего для того, чтобы здесь, в постпредстве, который является небольшим куском азербайджанской земли в Москве, выразить свое соболезнование всему азербайджанскому народу.
Every year on this mournful day, there's an endless flow of people to the Alley of Martyrs Memorial Complex where the remains of the martyrs of the Bloody January are preserved. And the marble gravestones lie people of different ages, different nationalities, religions, who more than 30 years ago were united by an unshakable desire to live in an independent, free, sovereign Azerbaijan, to be the true masters of their native, beautiful land. And in the name of this boundless love for their native Azerbaijan, they sacrificed their lives. Their life was cut short on takeoff, but their dreams came true. Given this good news to the people of Azerbaijan on this historic day is perhaps one of the happiest days of my life. Dear Shusha, you are free. Dear Shusha, we are back. Dear Shusha, we will revive you. Shusha is ours. Karabakh is ours. Karabakh is Azerbaijan.
Karabakh Azerbaycan'dır.
And today, bowing our heads to the blessed memory of all those who were the first to fight for freedom against the Soviet totalitarian regime, who continued the battle for territorial integrity and died bravely in the Karabakh War, we say thank you for today's present, for the wonderful future of our native Azerbaijan. You are forever in the memory of our people, in the history of our state. May Allah rest your souls in peace.
The first one to give a political, legal assessment of the January 20 events was nationwide leader Heydar Aliyev. Assistant to the President, head of the Foreign Policy Department under the President Hikmet Hajiyev stated. He also noted that Armenia must correctly assess the new geopolitical reality in the region and draw appropriate conclusions.
Mass media was restricted from disseminating the whole truth to the world community. The first one to disseminate complete and reliable information about the tragedy in Baku, horrific January events to the international community was Heydar Aliyev, our nationwide leader. His coming to the representation of Azerbaijan in Moscow when the Soviet government was still present, his appeal to the international community, assessment of the existing opinions about the events which had taken place, broke the information blockade about the January 20th tragedy. After Heydar Aliyev's return to office, in the first days the assessment of the January 20th events was given at the state level. Tragic events of the January 20th is a chronicle of the fight and heroism of Azerbaijani people. Today, we mark the anniversary of the events of January 20th with a different mood. The occupied territories of Azerbaijan have been liberated, and today we look at these events, honor the memory of our martyrs as an invincible people. President Ilham Aliyev, in an extensive interview with local TV channels, touched upon issues related to the political, social, economic life of the country and also answered questions from media representatives about normalization. The basis for improving Azerbaijani-Armenian relations, as the President noted, is the start of negotiations on signing a potential peace treaty between Azerbaijan and Armenia and other topics. We're waiting for the reaction from Armenia. To improve the situation in the region, Armenia must correctly assess the new geopolitical situation and draw appropriate conclusions.
The required legal assessment has still not been given by the international community to the crime against humanity committed 32 years ago in Baku. Double standards are still ongoing. Ombudsman Sabina Aliyeva made a statement to the journalists. This was the beginning of the path to sovereignty. In 2020, under the leadership of Supreme Commander-in-Chief President Ilham Aliyev, our native lands were liberated, historic justice was restored, grounds were laid for the return of our former IDPs to their native lands. Implementation of this process is delayed due to objective reasons, since all territories are mined. We many times appealed to international organizations regarding this issue. Unfortunately, it should be noted that double standards are still ongoing. The staff of the Yeni Azerbaijan Party as well as government officials visited the alley of marchers. The memory of our citizens who had died for the freedom and independence of the homeland was honored, and flowers were laid at their graves. Although 32 years have passed since the massacre, what happened is still remembered. The heroism of our sons and daughters who died for the motherland is always remembered. In the morning, people visited the alley of marchers and paid tribute to the memory of the heroes like in the holy place. Baku Turkish Marchers Memorial Monument was also visited. That was all for today. Thank you for being with us and see you next time.